Thank you very much. Now, as I was saying, without delegates, there's no event. And you are event management professionals, I'm calling you.
Apparently.
So this is the rumour. So what do you call yourselves? Give us a little introduction, Lisa.
I'm Lisa. I would say I'm a logistics director. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I went freelance about a year ago, so I've worked for some big agencies. Jack Morton was my longest. And I've managed very big projects to small, complex events, registrations, etc. So
Okay.
that's me.
Okay, and Anton?
Hi, I've been freelance for about 15, 16 years, something like that. I tend to work in delegate management is the term I use. The other term I use is a data consultant. It's managing information to improve the delegate experience, to improve the client experience, and to often improve the actual management experience of the data itself.
Okay, now, delegate management. A wonderful little pair of words, but it means so much, isn't it? It's a hugely complex situation, delegate management, and we've got a room full of event management professionals here, yourselves as well. I'm not, okay? So imagine I'm starting from scratch. Where do I start?
Where do you start? Well, I think you really need to think about, what do you want the delegate experience to be from start to finish, really? And how are you going to manage those delegates and how are you going to manage that data? For example, do you need an all singing, all dancing, interactive, amazing website? Do you actually need that? Or is it something that you can, devise with a much more simpler solution? For example, you could even use an Excel spreadsheet if it's something very simple like a dinner or a yes-no data capture. And there are kind of solutions out there these days as well. Things like Google Docs offers, some great solutions for even basic data capture. And Anton, I know that you've had some great experience with that.
I think if you're going to consider using a spreadsheet, for me, I think there's probably a better idea would be to use Google Docs or that type of sharing technology. It's at the end of the day, it's free. It's very easy to set up a fairly simple event whereby you can use tools like Gmail. They run into a Trix or a Google spreadsheet. You can send and merge invitations and send them out. There are lots of people that are producing technology so that you can add PDFs, all sorts of attachments, merge decent fields and information into that email that gets sent out. That also then flows into you directing your delegate to a Google form. Simple information is flowing back into that same Trix onto another tab. It's shared in the cloud, and at the end of the day, you can report and you can share that information very, very easily with your stakeholders. For me, it's something that works very, very well instead of a basic spreadsheet.
And it may be suitable for things like very small events, like if you need to capture small press events or crew, things that you don't want to actually spend, a lot of money on for a delegate management system, for example.
Or something that you don't really want to deal with in terms of your main delegate management system.
Absolutely.
You actually just want to deal with crew separately because they're a bit of a pain in the backside.
Absolutely.
And you normally put them on a spreadsheet, but no one ever knows what the actual details are.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to share information.
So again, it's really more for kind of basic data capture, I would say, for something like that. But obviously, there's a ream of delegate management systems out there, and if you're doing something a little more complex, then obviously that's when you need to start looking at an external supplier really to help manage that.
Well, first of all, I need to say you're blinding me with science. So, and for people, I'm noticing people scribbling stuff down already. Are you going to be around later on for people to have a quick sort of rebrief, or not? Are you disappearing off?
I'd love to say that I would be, but unfortunately I've got something called joining instructions that are happening today for about 500 or 600 delegates that I've got to get involved in. So I'm going to be disappearing off, but my contact details will be available.
Just whack it on a spreadsheet. Yeah. Do it in the cloud. It'll be fine. Don't worry. See, I know everything. Okay, now you mentioned delegate management systems. If I, as this event manager, decide, okay, I need a delegate management system, what do I have to consider? What are my considerations?
I think the first thing you need to kind of consider is obviously what data you're capturing and how complex is that data. So it could be kind of basic registration details. It could be, do I want to capture multi-hotels? Do I want to capture breakouts? Do I want to let people book meeting rooms, etc.? So if it starts to get more complex, then absolutely you need a delegate management system. And I think you really need to think about your pre-event, on-site and post-event experience and that whole flow of data and what are those delegate touch points from the delegate side, but also from the logistics or event manager side as well, is really absolutely key.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly that. For me, the delegate side is incredibly important, but it's also freeing up that time, as David mentioned earlier. to allow yourself the time to interact with those delegates, to not send one-line emails, to actually communicate properly, for the simple reason that your gala dinner plan works well, and it's quite clear who you're grouping together, and there's some parameters that you're working with, and there are tools clearly to do that. So it's finding those pressure points and finding a system based on that event that works with that. And that starts right at the beginning, looking at the type of delegate that you're working with. Is it a third-party relationship? Is it an invite open scenario, or is it an invite closed? And looking at all those points through that delegate journey to make those decisions.
Absolutely. And think about, for example, the on-site experience. Do you want to offer an event app, for example? What is the experience with badging them? What is the post-event experience? And if you can think about it all from the very beginning, it will help you scope it out and cost it correctly, really, because you don't want to be caught out.
I think technology is clearly changing, and one of the things I was mentioning to Lisa a little bit earlier, and probably not overly PC, is that when I started off, I kind of looked at this industry and I went, it's a blue rinse brigade industry. You guys are working on the back of fag packets. You're using fax machines to send information. This was about 1992. And at the best, you're using spreadsheets or an Access database that someone's developed bespoke for you. But to change anything in it takes a hell of a lot of time. And I think there are a lot of different solutions now that are available, even off the shelf, that can work in greater ways, let alone looking at the social impact or the social opportunities that exist as well with these applications.
I think one of the things, when you're talking to different suppliers, and we're going to hear from 3 of them today, is kind of, they're all so different, and they all offer, they all offer the same thing. But there'll be different ways to manage those systems. So things like, how do they charge? Is it number of delegates? Is it number of email communications they sent out? Do they offer payment transactions, for example? So that and some of them will charge for IT time. Some of them will be more bespoke than others. So again, some will be more off the shelf. Who builds the website? Who builds that database? Do you need someone in your team to build that? Again, if you need someone to build that, you need to get someone in, an event professional, to help you define the registration website and the back-end database as well.
And presumably you need to know, you have to have all that information with you before you start the conversation.
Absolutely, which is why you need to define the brief.
Okay,
really.
So with so many suppliers around, as you say, we're going to hear from 3 in a moment, who I'm sure would say they're not all the same.
No, they're not all the same.
No, good Lord,
agree.
no, absolutely
they're
not. But that's going to take you a lot of time and effort, isn't it, to consider all of them and look at it. So when you've made a choice, how can you really be sure that it's the right option?
Well, it's about asking the right questions to start with. So defining your brief, asking the right questions, getting an event professional in to help you manage that process. And then, again, asking around the industry. That's what I would do. I would always ask, and asking for references, asking to speak to some of their, customers and event managers who have used their systems. Anton?
I think you can probably expand a little bit on that. Once you've got those references and once you've got those ideas and you can narrow it down to 2 or 3 systems, I think you need to demo them. I think you need to put in a decent amount of data. You don't need 100 fields. You don't need every single page. You don't need every single attendee category. But you have to demo it. You have to find out whether it works well for mailing purposes, how the forms work, whether you can mass update. You've got to actually find out how to use that system. And the supplier needs to provide you pretty much full access to that system to test. Because at the end of the day, you need to be comfortable going into that event for the first time that it's going to work.
And also what sort of support they provide as well is really important. So they may provide some support as part of their package. They may charge extra. Where is that support? Is it in the UK or is it in the US? There's so many different variables and so many kind of new suppliers around as well. So it's important to ask all those questions.